Hey, good morning. Welcome to the JeepSolid garage. So in this episode, we're going to be covering how to install our pistons on our Project 92 YJ. Rattlesnakes!
Don't drop it.
Stop! Actually had this for a... So if you're new to the channel, welcome. This is the JeepSolid garage. I'm Dale, and this is a 4-liter inline 6 that I'm taking through a complete rebuild on. We're going step by step. You guys that are following along with me, thank you. I really appreciate that. I love the comments and the feedback that I'm getting on this. It's been a really fun project so far. So very first thing we're going to do here, let's turn this thing sideways. You'll remember in my last video, we installed the crankshaft. We checked our clearances with plastic gauge, did all that. So as we move along here, we have to make sure that the cylinders are perfectly clean. So I'm going to take a little bit of WD-40 here. This guy's out, huh? We're going to take a little WD-40 here and hit the cylinder walls with it. And now look at this. When I take my rag, wipe the inside of the cylinder. This has been honed at the machine shop. It's been bored and honed, so it's all ready to go. We've got a little bit of dirt here. We want to get all of that out of these cylinders. We want it perfectly clean. WD-40 just provides a nice little lubricant to help kind of wipe these out. So and we're going to run through this until we can do this with our rag coming out clean. And of course, this is after it's been final washed and everything. So yeah, I got my crank installed. So obviously we're past the engine block cleaning stage onto assembly here. But even then, we still got more cleaning to do. And now this build is sponsored by Engine Tech. They gave me the rebuild kit that I need for this project to do a review and installation, how-to video on. So I will be sure to link this exact kit that I'm using in the description below. And let's start by taking piston number 1 here. So we're going to take piston number 1 here. We've got our rings installed. If you haven't seen that video, it'll be linked in the description below. Let's take the cap off of it here. And now we have to pay very particular attention to the orientation of a lot of these things. How the caps go on, how the bearings go inside of this. So on the cap here, before I take this off, you'll notice on the side here, you'll notice that this has a 1 stamped on the side here on the rod and on the bearing cap. And you gotta make sure those are two are matched up. And all the rest of the pistons as well. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, they're all labeled. And those 2 stamps correspond with each other. And the machine shop can do that for you if you have them bore and hone your cylinders to match your pistons. So having that stamped is great to help you keep everything oriented properly. Now next we're going to clean this really well. The inside of the bottom of the rod here and the inside of the cap here. We want both of these surfaces to be super clean. We can't have any oil, debris, nothing underneath there, not even any oil. So we want that to be perfectly clean and dry. Yeah, even the repair manuals and things I look at, they really emphasize that these caps and the back side where the bearings go here, these need to be really clean. I say it is a critical step. We've got our new rod bearings here from Engine Tech. Let's open these guys up. Now let's insert a bearing. They have these little tab on it here. That just lines up to this little tab on the rod there. And same thing on the cap. There's a little notch right here that you have to line up. So it's not really rocket science. You just got to kind of pay attention to what you're doing. And as we're putting these bearings in, we're doing this dry. We are not using any assembly lube at this point. When we do our final assembly, after we check our clearances, we will be using assembly lube. But for right now, just dry. Okay, now we're going to get ready to install our piston. And on the top of the piston here, it actually has a little arrow that points to the front of the engine. So you have to make sure that you have this installed oriented correctly so that it's pointing the correct direction. And the other thing we're going to pay attention to is our rings on our piston. We're going to make sure that our ring gaps, that these are alternated. We don't want them in sync with each other. We want them spaced apart. So we're going to move those until they are on the opposite sides of each other. And once we have that done, we can go ahead and take our engine assembly lube and get a little bit of lube on these rings. This assembly lube I'm using is from Redline. I'll link it in the description below. They gave me this fluid for this assembly as well. This is a good multi-purpose assembly lube that you can use on the pistons, rings, bearings, lifters, just about everything. All right, we got everything lubed up nicely, so got our piston ring compressor here. Go ahead and open it up. Now we've got to compress these rings completely to get them down into the cylinder. This is just an inexpensive ring compressor, not the best, but it works. Now we're installing piston number 1, so let's go ahead and rotate the crank around until we're at bottom dead center for piston number 1. And we'll get a little bit of assembly lube in the cylinder here. Now as we insert the piston, the rod into the cylinder, I'm going to take a little bit of a clean rubber tubing I have here, put it over the ends. We don't want these threads scratching up the cylinder wall or the journal on our crank, so cover those guys up. Okay, now I can double check my orientation. Piston goes in this way, the front's that way. I've got just a little bit of the skirt showing here to kind of get me started. Keep my threads covered up and gently insert the rod just until the ring compressor is seated against the to the deck here. I'm going to gently tap on the piston here, trying to keep a little bit of downward pressure. I'm kind of holding with my back hand here. We're just tapping until that piston slides down into place. And one thing you have to watch for, right as the rings get to the gap where it's about to enter the cylinder, they could have a tendency to try to pop out. So if you find any resistance at all as you're tapping this in, stop what you're doing, back it off, see what's hanging you up, because you don't want to be breaking your rings or anything, which can absolutely happen if you get a little too aggressive with it. Now, yeah, if I run into some resistance here, back off my ring compressor, reseat everything, let's compress those rings again. You can see here how if you're not careful, you can end up damaging your journal pretty easily. So definitely protect your threads there. Okay, now the reason we did this dry, because we are going to go along and plastic gauge, check our clearance on our journals here. So let's get those guys out of the way. We'll take our other cap and we're going to line up number 1 with number 1, which is on the other side. First, we are going to take a little piece of plastic gauge here. If you haven't seen my video on plastic gauge, go check that out. I'll link it in the description below of how to use plastic gauge. But this is a critical step you can't skip. So next we're going to torque these cap nuts here up to 33 foot-pounds, and we're going to do that in a 3-step process, working up to that 33 foot-pounds. Now we can back it off and check our clearance. As we back it off, we're trying not to disturb the plastic gauge. And now the clearance we're looking for is 1 to 3 thousandths. And it looks like we are right between 2 and 1.5. Yeah, maybe closer to 2 there. But anyways, either way, it's within spec, so we're good there. So let's gently scrape off our plastic gauge here with a plastic putty knife. Don't want to use anything metal on our journal here. And same thing with our bearing cap here. Just going to clean some of this plastic gauge off. Okay, so now that we know that our clearance is good, we need to back this bearing off a little bit so we can get a little assembly lube behind it. And when you're checking your clearances, you can't have any assembly lube on it. It just has to be clean and dry. So let's back this guy off a little bit. I think I'm going to put my little protectors on here. It should be far enough to get a little assembly lube on there. And that's another thing I really appreciate about the Redline assembly lube. Not only, you know, Redline has a great reputation, a high quality product, but you can really tell when you get things lubed up well. I do like the red color. You can tell that you hit all the surfaces well, so that's nice. Alright, let's reseat this piston. Make sure our cap is oriented correctly. There's the one. The one is on the bottom. I had to double check here. So yeah, the cap and the rod, the number ones line up on the bottom. Let me double check the piston that it's oriented to the front of the engine, because I'd hate to put it in wrong.
Yeah. Hey, where'd he come from?
I got a helper that showed up. Now that I'm almost done with this, you know, there's Jason.
Why are we bending down?
So we will torque this guy down to 33 foot-pounds. We're going to do that in 3 steps again. What did I do? I did 25, 30, 33. And with that, we can check to make sure everything rotates smoothly. And it all looks good. It's not binding up anywhere. It's just the pistons, the rings. Because they have to seat themselves. Alright, so that's it. Piston number 1 is done. So you guys want to go through 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 with me? It's the exact same process. It'll be fun. Let's do it. Or we could just end the video here. You can check out the products I have linked in the description below. Be sure to check out my Patreon page, and I guess that's it. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.